having heard what you said so far, I was thinking, oh, this is so good. So good. So, and I just hope to God that my dogs don't start barking.
We're used to that.
Okay, I think we are now live. So I'm just going to waffle for a few minutes so that we don't, we allow people to join as they want to. So let me kick off now. Let me start by saying welcome. And I am really excited to meet the both of you because I haven't met you before and hear your stories. We've just been chatting for a little bit, and I think everybody who listens to this is going to be blown away. So this is two of the, I was going to say, senior team of Skin and Blister. And having heard your journey and having heard everything, I'm even more excited that you've joined to come and share your story and how you feel about leadership, which is our passion as well. But I want to say to everybody who's listening today, I think you're going to hear some things that is going to make you want to ask some questions. So if anybody is listening, wants to ask some questions, please just type them up. I will then need to keep my glasses on rather than take them off, and I will need to peer at the screen. But please do that, because I know that Katie and Fee would be absolutely delighted to answer any questions that you have. So please feel free to do that. So I'm going to kick off by saying I'd really like you to introduce yourselves, introduce a little bit about who you are. I know how passionate you feel about that. Introduce a little bit about who you are and how you actually landed up where you are now with this very exciting company called Skin and Blister. So, Fee, would you like to kick off?
Yeah, thank you, Penny. It's lovely to be here today. Yes. So when I first met Katie, to be honest with you, I was not very impressed at all. I was 13 months old, and Katie bombarded herself into my life as my baby sister. So Skin and Blister is London Cockney rhyming slang for sister. That is where the name of our company came from. And Katie and I grew up surrounded by healthcare. So both of our parents were family doctors, GPs in the UK. And so our world was always surrounded by patients. We probably spent more time, to be honest, in the doctor's surgery than we did in our own homes. We're always there, working in the reception and in the dispensary. And growing up, we got this real appreciation about the positive impact you can have on patients' lives when you combine medicine with really strong, helpful communicating. Katie and I grew up and we went into the scientific background. We kind of had science degrees. Both of us went off separately to do that, which, to be honest, if anybody had seen us growing up, would have been really surprised by, because we rebelled against each other relentlessly growing up, but ended up sort of in the same world. But we're both not set out for a life in the lab. It's just too analytical, and both of us are always naturally quite creative. So we both enjoy creative writing. And so I fell into healthcare communications by chance, just through a job through one of the nurses at my mum's surgery. Her daughter worked in healthcare PR. And so I went for a job there, didn't really know what I was going to be doing. PR was not for me because it just felt a little bit too cutthroat for me. But down the road, there was a healthcare advertising agency, and I went and started working there. And I remember in the first week just thinking, this was the dream job. I just didn't know it existed while I was at university. So sort of went into that world. My focus was very much on building client relationships. So really working day to day to make sure we understood what our clients' briefs were, and then working internally with the creative team to generate some fantastic work that would help healthcare professionals and patients. But going through sort of developing and growing through those years, worked at a number of different creative agencies and couldn't really find the perfect place to work for. People were churning things out. They weren't necessarily thinking about the healthcare professional or patient what they really needed at the end of it. And it was just really frustrating. And separately, Katie was also in this world, working first as a medical writer and then as a creative writer. And we kept having all these conversations just saying, we just think we could do this better. But as life went on, I started having a family. So I have an eldest son, 14-year-old Marcus. We're in the grunty teenage stage. So the living leader is helping me massively at this point in my life from a personal point of view. When I had my second pregnancy, when I went for my 20-week scan, we were kind of going in just thinking, do we find out about the sex of our baby, or do we want a surprise? And then literally we were in there, and when the sonographer suddenly went quite quiet and then started asking me questions about Marcus and had he been a normal size and had his brain developed properly. And suddenly our world fell apart. We were told that our baby was not growing properly and he potentially had quite a rare, very severe disability. For the next 11 weeks, I really pushed to go to the best doctor or to the best consultants that I could see, the best geneticists as well. Went up to King's College London every week for various different appointments and tried to understand what was going on with my baby. And some weeks it was really good, and then some weeks it was not so good. And if there was any information that I was told that I didn't take in, due to the stress of that appointment, I could go home and tell my parents and they would explain it to me. And although this became a very, very difficult point in my life, reflecting back on it, this was the moment that my purpose really became true to me, because it made me realize what it must be like when you aren't in such a privileged position of understanding the world of healthcare and understanding what your options could be. And I really strive every day to make sure that nobody else feels lost in healthcare like I did at that point. Unfortunately, my baby boy Lincoln was stillborn when I was 31 weeks pregnant. And again, it was a really tough time, but Katie and I started working together at a creative agency once I was able to go back to work. And we actually worked really well together, and we were sort of pushing each other, challenging each other to do better. And we kept saying, gosh, we should really do this one day. Anyway, after that, I had 2 other children I'm very blessed to have. Jensen, my little rainbow baby, the very spirited one that, again, I need Living Leader for to help me. And Darcy, who's now 9, she's my little boss baby. And after that point, Katie said, come on, let's do this. So yeah, Skin and Blister was born 8 years ago, and really striving for that mission day to day to just ensure that nobody feels lost in healthcare.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you for that, Fee. So Katie, over to younger sister.
Yeah, so I'm the cheeky younger sister, and my story is a little bit different. I think when we grew up, I spent a lot of time with Fee in the surgery also. We always worked there during our summer jobs, and probably, even though I didn't want to admit it, I actually absolutely loved being around medicines and seeing the difference they could make to patient lives. But because both my parents were doctors, I, as a natural rebel, kind of rebelled against that direction for my career. I didn't want to go anywhere near it, to be honest. And sport was my real passion. And from a very young age, I was in every sport team that was going. I was competing in swimming and in athletics at quite a high level, going to big competitions and doing really well. And my path was set out. I wanted to do sports science at university. I'd chosen the university, and I was always out on that playing field. If you couldn't find me, that's where I'd be. However, one day when I was about 15, I went over my ankle during a training session, and I was a kid that got injured a lot because of all the sport, but this time was a bit different, and the pain just didn't seem to go away. So I remember being taken to see a consultant who didn't really know what was going on, so decided to put my leg in plaster. And then that would continue until I got referred to another consultant who had a look and also didn't know. So I basically got a lot of referrals. I got bounced around the healthcare system for actually about 6 years in total by the end of it. During this time, I was told really big things, things like, you could end up in a wheelchair by the time you're 25. No one else in the country has this illness, and we've never seen it in someone of your age. It was basically a bone condition in my ankles and in my knees. And a lot of people just saying, we don't know how to treat you. So they would kind of parachute me into the geriatric care clinic, and I would be surrounded by very old people at the age of 15. And as you can imagine, this had quite a detrimental effect on my mental health, on my mental well-being. And I went to a very, very dark place. I watched all my friends go off and live their dreams and all go to university and do A-level sport. And I wasn't allowed to do any of it because I couldn't do the practical side of sport. So I was very lost at this time and had quite a lot of surgery over the years. It kind of all culminated when I failed one of my A-levels, which as a doctor's daughter, failing your chemistry A-level is not really on brand, didn't go down too well, and just decided to try and get through clearing. And I got a place at UWE to do biomedical science because, like I said, this love of medicine had always been there, and biology as well. My mum really kind of encouraged me to go. And actually, the best thing about going to UWE was that I met a surgeon in Bristol who took a real risk and decided that he could basically saw my ankle bones in half, reposition my feet in 2 major surgeries that had about a 6-month gap in the middle. And I basically learned how to walk again. I'll never forget the day when I went to the doctor's appointment with him and he said, you are discharged. And that was such a moment after 6 years of not being discharged, just constantly being referred. And he also said, don't do anything crazy, like don't go out and do sport where you might move in various directions, or definitely don't do long distance running. We don't know how much time you've got until you might need more surgery. So you need to protect yourself and be as careful as you can. And I kind of decided over the years, I went traveling and decided finish uni. I actually decided to rebel against that. And I thought, you know, I have this one life and I've missed out on all this stuff. So I'm going to go live my life and take the experiences as they come. And I ended up running 5 marathons for charity, including London twice. And, you know, just living and just really doing the things because I didn't know how much time I would have until more surgery. And the real positive of this is that I now know that even though I didn't talk about it again for many years, it wasn't part of my personality. Having now done the Living Leader and also the Marketing Academy Scholarship, I'm fully aware that this is why I get out of bed every morning, that this is now such a huge part of my purpose, that no one feels lost in healthcare like 15-year-old me did. You know, I needed a guide. I had a rare disease. There was no internet even really around then to connect with anyone. And there's a lot of change to be had within the industry, and there's a lot of support that people need. And so it's become a huge part of my purpose, and it drives me every single day.
Well, what a story. I mean, the two of you have had one heck of a journey.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. So just in a couple of sentences, or probably a bit more than that, just so that people understand, what exactly does Skin and Blister do? Because then, of course, I really want to ask you about how your passion for leadership came about. So first of all, either of you, who would like to give the headline of what Skin and Blister is about?
Fee?
I can take that if you like. So yeah, what we try to do is really understand the healthcare professional, the patient, and what they might need for the various different conditions or brands that we're working on. So we'll go out, we'll speak to people, we'll gather loads of insight, and then we also look at all the data, so that really complex scientific information. And then our team will work to put those two things together. So we think about it in quite a strategic way, but really trying to distill it down into something that's meaningful, useful, and accessible for all. And Skin and Blister is a creative agency. We set up 8 years ago fully remotely. So this is before the pandemic. And one of the reasons for doing that was because we became very clearly aware of the fact that people leave the creative industry when they reach a certain age often. And it's probably because they're being pulled in directions of motherhood, or if they have responsibilities to care for parents or relatives, and also just the other stuff that can happen in people's lives. And we're thinking, why are people really driving their creative teams to come often into London, central London, get in there every day at 9, work till probably at least 9 in the evening, very long hours, long days? It's not actually the best way for creative people to thrive. Brains are alert at completely different times of day. Some of our team are night owls and they really come up with amazing ideas at 7, 8, 9 p.m. in the evening. And then they'll come in later in the morning because they're not really morning people. Some of the team are real morning people. So they get up and they're often working at 7 in the morning, and then they might take a break during the day, go walk the dog, or come on a bit online a little bit later as well. And we're trying to encourage the whole team to really hack their best times of working and think about where they thrive and where they'd like to be when they work. So I'm currently sat at the end of my garden in, this is affectionately known as Skin and Blister sauna, not too far from Windsor. Katie's in West London, but our team is all over the UK, from Scotland down to Devon, also in Spain and New Zealand. And of course, the pandemic happened, and it really was a point of needing to make sure it would work for everybody. But Skin and Blister was already set up that way to work and really make sure that we prioritize culture in a virtual setting. So we're really passionate about that. Our creative team, a lot of them are sort of menopausal age now. Is that a nice way of saying it? But, and it's being able to take breaks. It's making sure that, life changes and life happens and life flexes. And I think that's part of what the Leaving Leader has really encouraged our team to do, is to have that really strong bond of connection. Also for us all to be taking responsibility for our own ways of working, and then to look out for each other. And the output of that, hopefully, is creativity that really pleases our clients, but ultimately really works for the patients and healthcare professionals at the end of the day, to improve lives for everybody.
Wow, I think it's the whole thing. When you talk about purpose, when you talk about your passion, everything just shines out of you both. It's lovely to see it. And I love this idea of having people able to work when is best for them, taking ownership of saying, I'm a morning person, or I'm an evening person. I mean, there's somebody who's has been a friend and a colleague and is one of our trainers for years. I think she was the first person to ever train, Christine. Mornings for her and anathema. Oh God, have I got to get my brain? But she would be working till 9-10 o'clock at night. I can't do that. I'd be dead on my feet. My brain would have completely seized up. So, being able to support that in a company is both lovely, but it's pretty darned unusual. It doesn't happen in too many companies, but I think it's so important. There's the 8 of you who are doing this. Are you all women, or are there any men on that?
So
all of our
Sorry,
go for it, Katie. No.
All of our permanent team, the eight permanent, are all women, and then we have about another 8 long-term freelancers that we flex depending on the creative challenge in front of us, and we do have probably 2 or 3 men as well. I think our model lends itself to working parents particularly, and a lot of them are women who, I think, as Fee mentioned, often leave the industry. So it's just naturally gone that way. But we are aware that you need to have diversity among teams to be able to deliver great work.
Oh, well, that's great. Well, now I need to ask you, not unnaturally, what is it that got your interest going on leadership, which, as you know, is my passion? What is it that got you going on that? And Katie, let me ask you that.
Well, I think there's something in the Living Leader that actually changed my whole perspective about leadership. And that's that any person can be a leader, whether you're in an organization or whether you're in a family. We're leading our parents sometimes. My Fee's children sometimes lead me. And I think when you switch your mindset to that idea, and then you want to embed that into your company, I think amazing things can happen, because as 2 founders like Fee and I, you reach the point where you can't be part of every conversation. You can't be everywhere all at once. So empowering every single person that works for you to become a leader, and to also up their communication skills, to really think about the other people that are around them, which is vitally important in a working model like ours, has actually just been transformational for the business.
What made you decide to work with the Living Leader?
So in all honesty, I got nominated for the Marketing Academy Scholarship. Okay. And when I was going through the website, I saw the Living Leader logo on it, and as part of my research. So I went down a bit of a rabbit hole, found your website, and I just thought, I need to be a part of this. This speaks to exactly everything that I believe in, and whether I get on the Marketing Academy Scholarship or not, I want to do the Living Leader. So I've actually done it 3 times now. I did it with Christine, as you mentioned, virtually during the pandemic. Then I did it in person at the Marketing Academy Scholarship. And then the whole team at Skin and Blister did it together with Celine after that. So I think it comes up every day, Fee. I'm sure you'll agree, but it really does. It's embedded into our company now.
Yeah,
It's
it was
really
totally infectious
yeah,
to see
so come on,
Katie.
what about you?
Yeah, Katie, I think, introduced then all of us to it. So through the Marketing Academy, Katie started to implement some of the things that she'd been learning. And then Katie put herself forward for a WACL grant as well. And that's the Women in Creative Leadership grant. And Katie won it, which was fantastic. But very generously, Katie said, I want to use this for the good of everybody, and not just for myself and my personal development. Between those two times, because I'd been so just wowed by everything Katie was doing, I said, I've got to do the Living Leader. I want to do it. So I did it first with Celine, just separately myself, all virtually, which was fantastic again, because it just really fitted with my life and around the kids and everything. It was fantastic to be able to learn week on week. And actually, I loved having the time to think about it between each session that we did with Celine. And then when Katie got this grant, she said, we want to use it for the good of everybody. We're like, well, let's do the Living Leader as a whole team. So then I think it was at the start of last year, the whole team, all 8 of us, did the Living Leader with Celine again, which was amazing. And one of our team, Laura, she started the first session 3 days before officially joining us. So that was her introduction to Skin and Blister too. So bless her, she was super brave. She came on, did introductions, everything, as part of her onboarding really of the company. But actually, on reflection, it could have been better timing, really. It was just wonderful. So yeah, it flows through everything now, and it's great to have done it a few times and just continually be thinking about it. But I think the whole team talks about it so openly, and we think about it every day. It's part of our DNA now.
Yeah.
So tell me, there's quite a lot on the program. I mean, I would imagine that you probably remember more than most, having done it 3 times, which is great. But what do you think? Couple of questions, really. Are there any specific bits that's had the biggest impact on you, or that has stuck the strongest, or resonates with you? And when you talk about it, it will be really interesting to know how you think your behaviors change, what you actually think you're doing differently. So who'd like to go first?
I'm happy to go first.
Good.
So I think there are some for me personally, and there are others for us as a team. Personally, the real massive light bulb moment for me was the responsibility model. And I think Sherilyn says it quite a lot, is the moment that you realize that you're responsible for everything in your life is the moment that you can change anything in your life. And having just told my story, I definitely think that I was kind of in the victim zone for many years, probably. These things just kind of always seem to happen to me, and it wasn't my fault. And switching my brain to be like, yeah, but you are responsible for how you act after anything that happens to you, and changing that has been very empowering. And I think it's made me probably a better person. It's made me be able to look at life challenges differently, to be able to help others, and to express gratitude, and be really grateful for everything that I do have. Whereas I think from the kind of the darkness, it was more focused on things that I'd lost or maybe didn't have. And now I'm very, very grateful for my life. I feel like I have the perfect job. Everything worked out brilliantly. It just took a long time for me to realize that. And then in terms of the team, I think it's the blue, green, and the red communicating areas. I love that as a team, somebody can just sometimes be like, I think I just went a bit red then. And probably they didn't. It was probably just a really strong blue. But to kind of have this code and be able to acknowledge it in other people is so powerful. It really helps us to train each other and very gently pull each other up on certain behaviors, and help us all develop and learn and grow together. And so that's been brilliant.
That's so good to hear. And I have to say, the responsibility model for me, I think for an awful lot of years, I was firmly in victim mode as well.
Yeah.
And when I first began to realize and said, hang on, because that's where the model came from. Of
Yeah.
course, realizing that I was on a repeating pattern of putting myself in victim mode, saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, everybody else, you know, it's they do this to me," and begin to say, "Yeah, but hang on a minute, you've got choices here." And I know, I will share with you before I ask Fee to share hers. There was one other conversation that I had on these monthly ones with Bert and Callum McLean. Callum, McLean. And he was saying, Callum, he said to his dad, actually, I think he even said it when I was having the conversation. He said, now I understand so much of the way when you brought me up. But it used to make me so cross when you kept saying to me, this is your choice, Callum. This is your choice, guy. He said, I just wanted you to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
You know, and it's very hard sometimes for people to recognize that the biggest gift you can give anybody is the gift of showing them how they can take responsibility for their life.
Yeah.
It's not always easy to do that, because when we're parents and we love them, we keep wanting to give them advice.
Yeah.
And, you know, just hanging on to the fact, if we keep giving advice, we're basically saying to them, you can't do this without me.
Yeah.
You're educating them how not to think for themselves, and they can never be better than you were yesterday because it's coming out of your head. So, but it's a challenging one, because I don't know about both of you, but I still find it difficult not to give advice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because if you love somebody and you really care for them, you want to help them, and you feel if you don't give advice, you're not doing anything. It's not easy. It isn't easy.
Yeah, learning that deep listening and not jumping in and giving the advice is something that I think we still work at every day. We're not here to say that we're perfect at all of these things, but I think just having the awareness, it does help, and it encourages you to be a better listener as well. Listening is major to all of the living leader.
Yeah, no question, it is.
Yeah.
Sophie, tell me, what is there anything specific that you would like to share that you took from the program?
I mean, personally, for me, it was the give, not get. That was an absolute game changer. I think about it probably at least 3 or 4 times every day, probably more than that now. I think inherently, I'm the eldest of, well, there's actually 5 of us in our family. And I think I'm an inherent people pleaser, as that sort of person, always trying to help, always trying to do things. And as a team, part of our business is pitching. So we go in and we're having to try to prove to clients what we can do for them, and trying to be, trying to elevate ourselves against our competitors. And so often you're thinking, oh, what are they thinking? What are they doing? What are they going to feed back? And actually that moment of thinking, I can't do anything about that, but we can give it our all. We can really think about what do they need, and we can try to offer some thoughts and perspectives that maybe they'd never considered. And actually changing it around to that way of thinking is so freeing. It's like a weight off your shoulders. And I have this conversation with my kids a lot as well. I think especially my 9-year-old daughter, as anyone who's got daughters will probably know, the emotional friendships that girls can go through and the playground every single day is unbelievable. And again, it's trying to change that thinking to, you can't actually do anything about what they think of you, but you can do what you can to be your best version of yourself each day, and try and focus on that rather than everything else. And the rest of it will perhaps fall into place. But yeah, it's for me, the give not get is just game changing. And then I think both personally and professionally for us, one of the biggest changes has been the introductions part of Living Leader. And the first time I did that with Celine and talking about Lincoln, I was in floods of tears. It was the first time I'd really told strangers about my story, and it felt very vulnerable and quite daunting to do that. And then today I've been able to do it and not cry about it. I think the number of times you do it, but it is such an important part of your story. Everybody's got things going on in their lives that they're battling that you have no idea about. And from a work perspective, people turn up every day with their professional mask on. They're just focused on their business, but actually they could have been having an awful time. And being able to be so open and transparent about that with ourselves as team members, but also with our clients, is absolutely game changing. And so now when we start every new client relationship, we will do proper introductions. And sometimes our clients say, oh, I don't need that. But we go in, and that's the first part of our kickoff meetings. And it's amazing what you find out. And also the connections that you very quickly form with people through shared experiences or similarities that may have happened in people's lives that probably would take 6 to 9 months if you went in with the mask on, and probably end up finding about that one, one day over lunch or something. But yeah, we've done that within the first couple of hours. And that has been radical for our business, and to strengthen our client relationships is amazing. And then personally, I did it through being a governor. So I'm a governor for our primary school. I'd been a governor for about 3 or 4 years, and then I was stepping up into the chair of governors role. So it was a fairly established team, but traditionally the meetings would be, you turn up, it was very businesslike, very formal. No personality really, which for me I struggle with, but I went along with it. But when I stepped into the chair role, I said to the head teacher, I really want to start this next meeting to introduce ourselves. And she said, we don't need to do that. We've done that. No, we haven't. Please trust me on this. And luckily I have a good enough relationship with her that she did trust me on it. And so that next meeting we started, and I allocated the first hour of it for introductions. And I did mine. I did a proper unmasking, really explained about Lincoln, about my reason for wanting to improve the lives of children, especially children with special educational needs and disabilities, because it taps into what Lincoln would have lived with. And through that process, there was almost like this like little moment of a light bulb moment. And suddenly people then started sharing their stories. I found out, so there's 7 of us on the governing board. 2 other governors had a stillbirth in their life, and we'd never known that. And so whether there's this shared reason for wanting to do good when you've been through like something like that, perhaps when you've lost a child, there was something there. There was another person that shared about their real struggles with neurodivergency. Again, they had put on a mask. They'd been coping day to day, but they said, I want to be really open about this. So if I'm having a bad day, I can tell you I need a bit of a break. One of them told us about that their parents have been immigrants and their reason for being here, and why they strive each day to do better, to sort of make their parents proud. All these amazing stories. And we left that meeting really starting to know each other. And we'd worked together for 3 years. And then a few months later, we had the Ofsted call, which normally is terrifying. And I think if it had been 9 months beforehand, we would have gone in, been the business like, done all of these things. But then we were a true team, and the feedback we got from the Ofsted inspector was incredible. There were no areas for improvement that we hadn't already thought about as a team, and our school managed to maintain its outstanding status. And we were all so proud of that, but we did that together. And now our meetings are, of course, we've got to do the business stuff, but we start off with how are we genuinely feeling? We share what's going on in our lives. There's a bit of fun and like joy at the start of each meeting, and we're working together as people rather than as positions. And for me, that has been game changing.
I love that you share this, because for some of our CEOs who've been through the program several times, they've worked with us 20, 25 years. Every company they go to, they've taken us in again. And they say that for them is the bit that's so critical.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, and for everybody who's listening, I really want you to take this on board. If you're people who haven't done the program and you're listening to this, I really ask you to think about it. And I'm going to just explain how we actually do it on the program. Because if you think about typically when somebody joins a company, what happens is they come in, they probably get introduced. So this is so-and-so, they've come from such and such a company. Perhaps you'd like to just give a little introduction. You say, yes, this is what I did. And you focus probably no more than about 5 or 6 sentences about what you've achieved and what you've done, and very little else. And this, when you think about it, just does not make sense at all. Because if you're going to, in any organization, and even if you're talking about maybe being part of a project management team that's only going to be working together for 3 months, it doesn't matter. Or if you're joining a team where you're going to be part of a team that's going to be building over years. To be a team, and a successful team, there is one thing that you need above any other thing, and that's trust. If you don't have trust, you're going to get things where people don't like to challenge because they think it's going to be unpopular, and they might be told it's a stupid idea, whatever. if they're going to want to give feedback to somebody who's more senior to them because they think they're about to make a wrong decision or whatever, it's not going to happen. And how can you make quality decisions unless everybody's going to be open about how they think and feel, what they think of the opportunities, what they think of the challenges, and so on? So trust is key to building a good team. But if you don't know each other, how the hell are you going to build that team?
Yeah.
And so introductions for us are absolutely key, and we do it on every program, and we get a bit of a reaction like you got when you were told the chairman who was leaving out that this is what you wanted to do. But oh God, we've known each other for years, we don't need that. It doesn't matter if we go in and do it with a team that's been working together for years. We ask what seems very simple questions. The first thing is, tell us a bit about who you are. And we joke about it to start with. We'll say, not just this is what I do, but, I'm married and I've got 11 children and 23 dogs, and I live in the country and I travel to Barbados 3 times a year. We happen to have got a lover out there as well. Or, and we do make it all sound very silly, but so that they're understanding. So we say, share a bit about who you are and tell us 3 things you feel really good about in your life. So that they need to think about things that are in their life. It could be achievements. It could just be that they're so lucky they've got a great marriage, or I don't know, anything. And then we said, what's the biggest challenge or opportunity you're facing in your life right now? Doesn't have to be work, can be home, can be anything. And then we'll always say, because we need to know about this, what are 3 things that you want to take away from the program? What are 3 things you really want to get? If you knew that you can leave here at the end of the 2 days saying that was really worthwhile, what are 3 things you want to walk away with? And then we'll say life's a 2-way street. What are 3 things you want to give? And funnily enough, people quite often find it difficult to think about what they want to give. They find it easier about what they want to get than what they want to give. And that's really simple questions. Now, if we're doing it with an integrated team already, we might say to them, what are 3 things that you really want to take from working with this team that will make you say, this is an incredible team? What are 3 things that you really want to get from it? And what to enable this team to be the most amazing team ever? What are 3 things you want to give? So those are the very simple questions. And the reaction in some instances is amazing. If we do an open program, which is where you've got people from all different businesses and so on, you see the team forming. By the time they then take the lunch break, they're a team because they know each other. It's extraordinary. But when you get teams that have already been together for a long time, you can see them almost in shock. My God, I didn't know that about you. I still remember a deputy head of a school where we took his school through, and he came to me afterwards. He said, I feel almost ashamed. He said, all our meetings are completely different. They're better. The way we work together is amazing. It's changed. He said, I've known some of these people for 14 years and I didn't know them at all. And you think, why do companies not understand how critically important this is? But they don't. They don't, or they see it as something nice to do. To me, it's absolutely key and fundamental.
Yeah.
So tell me, how do you think your behaviors have changed? If you had to look at it, both at home and at work, since you've been through the program, what do you think you actually do differently? Fee, let me ask you first.
I mean, straight away, motherhood comes to mind. So a perfect example would probably be last week, I got a text message from my cleaners saying they could no longer work. Come and do like every couple of weeks come in. And as a busy mum with 3 messy kids, it's like, oh gosh. And normally I think, right, I've got to do this all myself. And what I did instead is I sat us down as a family and I said, this is the situation. This has happened. Could anybody help? And straight away, my daughter, I'm going to mop the floors or whatever, and the boys are, oh. But it was thinking, what could they actually give to the situation to work together as a team? And I think it's trying to do some of those activities, things like in the morning, just trying to get out the door by 8:30. I'm like, come on, guys, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. You've got to brush your teeth, you've got to get your shoes, get your socks. And like you were saying earlier, Penny, you sort of tell them what has to be done. You suddenly become a bit of a sergeant major. And I remember Jo and our team, as part of the course, at one point, she said to her son, right, we've got to be out the house by 8:30. What are you going to do that? And then he could reel off the things he did. But then the next day, she let him take responsibility for getting out the door on time. And she said, we probably left 5 minutes late. But actually, because she wasn't sort of being the one to say what needed to happen, it had to come from him. Suddenly there was this change of mentality and actually taking responsibility for yourself and getting yourself to school. And you may forget things, but that's life. You know, those are all really important lessons that I think we always try to protect our kids from, but actually it's better to learn together that way. And it is really good to sometimes say, I feel a bit overwhelmed. Who could help me? You know, that's a really important thing for your kids to realize. You're not this superhero all the time, and you are vulnerable, and you need support and assistance, and you give a lot to them. What could they give too? So yeah, for me, it's the motherhood side of things, I think, which has been the biggest takeaway.
I think that's amazing. And I think you're absolutely right. And I do think as a parent, we feel that we've got to do everything, and we've got to be superwoman or super dad or whatever it happens to be. And that's just not the case. And being able to say to them, I need help. I think everybody at some level likes to be needed. So you're basically sending a message to your children. I'm needy. Will you help me?
Yeah.
And nearly always they want to help, because I think the most challenging leadership role is being a parent.
Definitely.
I
Every
got
single day.
Yeah. I got it badly wrong bringing mine up because I didn't learn it then. I was managing them all the time. So it's interesting. So tell me, what about for you, Katie?
Gosh, well, I mirror so much of what Fee says. I think, just thinking about it maybe more in a work context, just taking the time to listen and try and give other team members space to grow and learn and develop on their own. You know, an example I've seen recently is maybe slightly more junior team members come to us and they have almost like a list of bullets, and it's saying, they're asking for your opinion. And instead of me giving it straight away, I'm asking, well, what do you think? Like, I can see the answer. The answers are there on the page. It's, you know, what do you think? Or giving someone else the confidence to try to lead on a project and to really go for it. You know, everyone that we work with is so trusted, and we recruit very carefully because we have to recruit for this remote model environment. And we wouldn't work with anybody we didn't trust. And so we trust everyone that they know what they're doing, and it's just trying to inspire them to have the confidence to go out and have those conversations with clients, or to keep pushing work through to different teams and not stepping in. It is hard. It is difficult. And I think when it's your own business, is even harder. And I think Fee and I both love to work. We love to do the day-to-day. We're so passionate about the creative that we make, and it can be really exciting sometimes. And we do some really beautiful work, but it's giving others the opportunity, and just remembering that every time you delegate something to someone else, that's actually an opportunity for them to learn and grow.
Yeah, and absolutely spot on. And if you had to think about the impact that this is having overall on your business, how do you think that now, having brought this, I don't know what, it's not new way of behaving, it's just having a greater level of understanding and developing more as leaders, what impact do you think that is having and could continue to have on your business? Because it's not just about being nice, it's not just about bringing leadership in for leadership's sake. It's about saying, how can we be happier, more successful? How can we develop? So tell me, what do you think about that?
From a team perspective, I've never felt closer to any team that I've ever worked with. And Fee and I have worked in advertising agencies where you've had to have been in the office every single day. And I find it incredible that sometimes when we meet up in 3D or we go and see a client, and it reminds me that I've only actually met the team member in real life, maybe 2 or 3 times over the past 2 years. And so I think the value of the team relationship is enriched and has developed. I think in terms of clients, our clients are very honest with us. So they'll come to us when they need us to solve often quite complex problems or some of their harder challenges. Equally, they'll come to us when there isn't work coming up for us in the next couple of months, and be very transparent about that. And that's really, really valuable for us, because it's so hard to plan at the moment as well, given the kind of economic conditions. It's hard to plan ahead. So to have clients that are really trusting and very open and honest with us is really positive.
Thank you, Katie. What do you think?
Yeah, to build on that, really. I mean, you mentioned the give and the get. We always ask our clients that at the start of every project. We put it on Post-it notes, we put it on the wall, we take a photo of it, we come back to it. And I think there is this bravery on each side to also be bold and challenging one another for the greater good, not in an aggressive red way, but in an appropriate way that you sort of say, have we thought about every option? Is this the right thing to be doing? Ask ourselves what could be improved upon, and actually not to take it personally. So often in business, people can take things really personally, and also to encourage feedback. We really want to grow. We really want to learn together. We want a true partnership. What are we doing that's not great? Is there anything that could be done that just will improve your day tomorrow? It's those kind of conversations which we've never had in previous places that we've worked at before. And that goes for each other. That's the way we review our team. Every 3 months we get together and we do, hopefully, get feedback from both sides and really grow. But also from a client perspective as well. It's just that honesty. And lastly, I would say appreciation is so important. And it's often, it often gets missed, but just taking that time to say to somebody, thank you so much. You made my day so much better today because you did this. Or like sometimes our team will go off and do something to make Katie's and my life easier that we've never asked them to do. And they do that. And actually they don't expect any thanks for it. But if we notice it, we will make a point of saying, thank you. That, was wonderful what you did. Or even strangers that you meet. If you see somebody working really hard, I remember Celine saying, I think it might have been Christine saying about saying thank you to a cleaner in the toilets that she'd been in, or something. Little things like that often people don't get the thanks. And I know certainly from the school point of view, they get all the negatives, but actually occasionally, if you can just say, thank you, I noticed this, you did that, you weren't expecting anybody to see it, but it's fantastic. It's really not massive life-changing stuff, but it can really make a difference to somebody's day.
I think it's probably one of the most important things of all. I have to say, when I got asked at a program, somebody said to me, okay, if you had to take one thing away from your own program, what would you want to take away? And I said, give, get. But I have to say that appreciation comes a very close second, because, I think we're naturally inclined. I don't know about you with your children. You tell them that you love them all the time, okay, because you do, and you want them to know that they're loved no matter what. But what you're looking for, without meaning to most of the time, is where they're doing something not as well as they could, so that you can advise them how to do it better. That's what you're looking for. And we're inclined not to look for the things that they're doing well. And if we do notice it, we think, well, that's nice, but we don't actually tell them.
Yeah.
I can always remember, this was nothing to do with home, this is to do with work, but I looked at somebody quite shocked on a program I was delivering. And we were talking about appreciation. I said how important it is. Look for people's strengths. Look for what they're doing well. Tell them, because then they're liable to want to do it even better next time because they feel good. Oh, no, I don't think that's a good idea. It makes them too complacent. You only tell them when it's exceptional. And I thought, oh, God, that's not getting it at all. And I know that some of the companies I've been in, and I've said to them, tell me, how many people in your company do you believe go home at the end of every day feeling valued? And there's a sort of, yes, not, and they don't really want to answer it because they don't even think about it. It just for them doesn't register, and they don't understand how important it is. It's a bit like introductions.
Yeah.
Once you show them, they realize how important it is, but
Yeah.
it hasn't even entered their thinking. Then when they think about appreciation and think how they feel when somebody says how well they've done something, they begin to think, oh, yeah, it's like I say that I'm not sure how much new there is on the program. It's bringing back to your conscious awareness that which at some level you already know.
Yeah.
There's nothing that you've learned that you didn't at some level know already, but it brings it back to a conscious awareness that enables you to do you know, something a little bit more. One of the things I just want to ask you, do you have many people who are competitors in your area? You do.
Yeah.
So what do you think it is that you're now doing that enables you to have a better relationship and much more likely to pick up the business?
I definitely think we've been described as a breath of fresh air recently. I think that we are more human, and we're obviously working in human health. And I think that especially during the pandemic, you know, clients were coming to us and saying, how do we do this in a virtual setting? And it's surprising that more companies don't take this approach. You know, saying thank you, for example, costs nothing. It's a very easy thing to do. And as long as you're heartfelt and you mean it, which I think we always do, is such a small part of your day. It takes no time. So I think as competitors, we're already women owned, and that's quite rare. The kind of the advertising industry is very male dominated still. So that gives us a difference. And then I think our working model just helps clients to get the work as and when they need it. They don't really care like where we are in the world or where we're located or where we're doing the work, which is great because that means we can hack into those real times when everyone comes alive and their creativity is at full force. Clients care about whether it's going to be on their desk at midday tomorrow. And as long as it is, it doesn't really matter how it gets there. So I think there's that element to it too. We still make our deadlines. We are more human in meeting them. And I think that then instills a really great sense of partnership. And working in the client services industry, it can be them and us. And that's not our ideal client. For us, we're all in it together and we just want the best for the product, for the doctor or for the patient, whoever we're talking to with that communication.
I think that's great. Fee, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just to build again on what Katie was saying, really. I mean, there's nothing better than when a client says that the half an hour meeting they might have with us during the week is their best part of the week, because our clients are super busy people. They, you know, they're being pulled in every direction, and actually the creative side of it is probably 5% of their week. But it's just leading with kindness, I think, and empathy, really listening, like Katie was saying, trying to make their day-to-day life a lot easier. And ultimately, we want to help them shine. We want them to look brilliant in what they're doing and everything that they are producing with us to really work and be effective. And, you know, when other countries are saying, I want to use what they've done in the UK, you know, that's amazing. And then the client's brilliant because they can say, well, yes, here you go. So, you know, it's all that side of it as well. But really, I think it's about being kind, being honest, being open, and also being brave enough to say you're not our ideal client is quite strong as well. And that's where we are now. You know, at the start we'd say yes to everything. Now we're like, actually, this isn't our dream project, or this isn't a perfect Skin and Blister brief. Thank you very much. It's not for us, but here's somebody that potentially it would be a better fit for. And then really looking for our ideal clients. And those are the people that want to be open and honest and you know, collaborative together. So it's that side of it. I think the Living Leader has given us that inbuilt confidence of who we are, and we really want to stay true to that. And then for certain clients, that's their perfect agency.
You see, when you said that you were now doing that with clients, the introductory session, and I bet you there aren't any others who are doing that. I bet there aren't.
No.
And doing that and saying, we want to know who you are and we want you to know who we are so that we can build a relationship to be able to work brilliantly together. I would have said that that gives you one hell of a big edge.
Yeah. And just to add as well, Penny, so I think it was last year, it was just as we were coming out of the pandemic, I've lost track of time a little bit. One of our clients actually came to us and said, we're getting all this feedback from the team that the senior leadership team is not authentic. And what can you do to help us at our next sales meeting to help us show our authenticity? And so we ran an unmasking with, I think it was about 35 of them in the end.
God.
I did my introduction to the most senior leader there, which was actually for me quite terrifying. And then he stood up and took that spotlight and went first and told his story, and everybody followed, and it was incredible. But like Fee says, not rocket science. You know, that's the beauty of the Living Leader, is there's so many principles in it that are simple and straightforward. And when you understand, when you hear about them, you're like, oh my gosh, of course, you know, it's real logical stuff, but it can make all the difference. And to do that across a 30 client team was quite incredible.
What was the result of it? What did he give you the feedback about afterwards?
Oh, they said it was the best workshop they'd ever done. We broke out into breakout groups of about 7, by the way. So we didn't do 35 altogether, but we broke out into groups. And the group I was in, one person, he was quite standoffish to begin with. He's like, I just don't really believe in this, but okay. And then he started talking. And 10 minutes later, he told us so much stuff. And then different people were laughing, crying, you know, it was just incredible. Like this initial barrier went up, and then people found out about you know, just so many facets of their lives. And then at the end you could see, and it was all done virtually, you could see that their body language changed. They were looking out for one another. And the feedback afterwards, that as a team, they were working so much better together, but also having that consideration for one another in terms of the highs and lows of life as well, and not being like a robot, you know, always, you know, human nature, it's always expected to be 100% of achievement levels, but actually so you can't do that. You need to have breaks sometimes. You will have bad days and you will have dips. And apparently, again, it was that they were looking out for one another and just working really, really brilliantly together. So it was amazing feedback.
Yeah, and just to add finally, and also that senior leadership team came across as human beings. So the challenge that they came to us was answered, and that they no longer looked unauthentic. They looked like real people, real leaders, and that was exactly what we set out to achieve.
See, and I think that was really brave of you to do that, to just say, come on, I'll help you, let's do that, because it meant you immediately had to go first. You had to show them what to do, so you had to expose yourselves. So that shows real courage and real commitment, because going first when you don't know how it's going to be received is not always easy.
No.
But it's also, if you think about what for me is the most important characteristic of leadership, is authenticity. And authenticity can take a lot of courage, because people may suddenly ask you, and you may have at times a decision to make. Am I going to say or do what's expected of me? Or am I going to have the courage to be authentic? And one of those challenges may come across for you, and probably has done, is where for whatever reason you need to give a client negative feedback. And say, look, that isn't working. If we wish to continue to work together, it has to be different. You know, if you have to do that, it's pretty good to ask for permission first. Okay. And just say, look, I'd really like to give you some feedback. Are you okay with that? But, you know, if you're going to be authentic, there are times where you're going to be really challenged and think, oh God, this could be, but that comes back to give, get. Again, you know, you've got no control over it, but actually then being able to have the courage to say what you think is important to say if you're going to develop a good relationship is absolutely key.
And it's thinking about those ways of communicating as well. And, you know, every conversation has to start from the blue, but then it's like, how can you build on the greens, and how can you make that feedback still a positive experience for the person in front of you? It doesn't have to be from the red. It can be actually very constructive.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It can be, and it is important, but don't anybody kid yourselves that being authentic is naturally easy, because you're being, as you've used both of you've used these words a bit, and quite often, human. It's having the courage to be utterly human and expose your underbelly, and not just the perceived sort of perceptions that people have of you. I had to make that decision very early on when I started this. Was I going to be prepared to do what we do on the program, which is share my story very openly, knowing that that might make some people uncomfortable, which it does. Or was I going to be, sorry, forgive the words, but a bog standard consultant, where I tell people what to do, but don't tell them how I learned it and where I screwed up? And I made the decision, no, it's more important to me to be authentic. So, and I'm off to do that again to another top team on the 1st of October. So here we go again.
Penny.
Go for it.
I know. I just wish that I wasn't shrinking so much. The older I get, the more I shrink. I'm getting littler and littler. Do you know I've shrunk 4 inches?
Oh,
you?
Penny.
And I was knee-high to a
You're
grasshopper
mighty
anyway.
Small and mighty.
Right. If you had to leave everybody, because we've only got 2 minutes left, if you had to leave everybody who's listening here with just one thing that you'd like them to take away to do differently as from this moment, what would you ask them to do? Fee, you go first.
Be brave and introduce yourself properly. Let people know what's really going on for you, and it will be just game-changing. So try it. It does feel scary, but go for it.
Fee, that's great. Thank you. Katie?
I'd say take responsibility for everything that happens in your life, and don't forget to be grateful, say thank you, and appreciate everybody around you. Share the love, give people time, listen properly, and encourage people to grow and become the best leaders that they can possibly be.
Thank you both so much. I've so enjoyed this. I've learned things today about you, and it's inspirational. We had somebody put up here, remarkable story. So they found the story of when you introduce yourselves, and we've even got somebody from India listening.
Wow.
Oh, look, we've got another one here. Someone once said to me, clients get the agency they deserve. When I'm kind, honest, and open with my clients, and they respond positively to that, I give them the agency they want, and I get the clients I want.
Fantastic.
That's great, isn't it? Thank you both so much. And maybe one of these days I'll get to meet you live, not just Zoom.
Hopefully.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure.